everyone, and my name is Eula, and today we were gonna read Roy Jefferson's awesome friendly spooky story starting at the nap chapter, and we should be on our reading at 115 page for today. And now I already read this bundle with a lot of stories. Now here we go. And first we should read spooky stories starting at the nap. the nap chapter. There once was a woman who lived into a retirement community all by herself, and her name was Franz, but everyone in her family called her Great Aunt Franny, or just Franny for short. Speaking of her family, Franny didn't have any kids, but she had a lot of nieces and nephews. They had kids in their own, but none of them ever came to visit Franny because they were too wrapped in their own lives to visit her. Franny lived a little flat, but she had a really big TV. She needed a big TV because her eyesight wasn't that great, and the only thing that really made her happy was watching her soap operas. Every day, Franny would do something. She could watch her programs until she got tired, and then she'd take a nap in her comfy chair. And when she was done with her nap, she made herself a sandwich to watch more soap operas until the news came on. One day, while she was watching her programs, she saw an ad for something she might be useful for a person like her. It was like a little gadget with a button on it. If you pressed, you never fell and needed help. Franny thought that might be good thing to have since she lived alone. So she called the number on a screen and placed an order. She was the first time she'd spent the money on something like that. In fact, the only thing Franny never did with her money was write checklists for her nieces and nephews and their kids on their birthdays. And even though Franny was never late with her birthday card, she never got a thank you from everyone except Amber, who was only one in her family who wasn't rotten. Thank you for the money, Great Aunt Franny, Amber. On the weekends, Franny's routine was a little different because her soap operas weren't on TV on those days. So she usually had a big lunch and then taken an extra long nap for afterwards. On Saturday, everyone in town was excited because the day of a big game. There sent tickets to the big game and were sold out. Most people to watch it on TV. Well, no one in Franny's family had a big TV, but they knew someone who did. So a few hours before a big game, Gary and Mac and a bunch of guys piled up his pickup truck and headed to Great Aunt Franny's in retirement community. But when they got to Franny's flat and knocked on the door, no one answered. So little George turned to the knocked up and it was unlocked. But Franny was asleep in her comfy chair in front of TV, and when they saw her sitting there with her head titled and forward, they have thought she was dead. The guys were pretty sad because Franny was their oldest retired, and so because And so, because she was always on time with those birthday checkers, but they didn't have a lot of time for tears. But the big game was only a few hours away, so Gary and Mac made a few calls and found a funeral home that could move move what? Move things along that afternoon. It turned out the people of funeral home want to watch a big game too. So after a quick survives, everyone was out of there. So you might be thinking, oh no, Grey Dawn Franny got burned alive. But you probably forgot that Franny ordered that electricity gat when she woke up, just pressed the button to call for help. Well, that thing it just worked. Just as good as just as good as they said it did, and the outbird and help arrived a few minutes later. And luckily those guys from the company figured out what happened pretty quick. After that, got Franny out of there, got ground. They gave her a lift back to the retirement community. And then when Franny opened the door to the flat, she was just pretty surprised by that she found. Gary and Mac and the other guys were happy to see Franny alive, but they were also distracted because the big game was on the score. It was really close. Gary Mac didn't want to give up his seat in comfy chair in front of the TV, so Franny just had to sit on the couch with the other guys. Okay, now we should read the story for tomorrow. Start reading from 116 page for tomorrow. And now today's story was about that. The retired community people, Great Aunt Franny, was she had a big TB. So when the big game came, they have just brought so the families have went there, but so Franny was sleeping, but everybody thought she was dead. So their families have bird Franny to the ground, but she was just sleeping, so it's quite scary story. And now, did you have fun? You listen to Country come back with some these book, but not the stories. And please thumbs up my YouTube. And yes, and it will gonna be this stories. And please thumbs up my YouTube. And bye everyone.